Today is 9/11, 2018.
It's been 17 years.
17 years ago?
Did you see the headline? There was a school, and they were going to do the little, like, you know how they put out little crosses for all the people that died? Mm-hmm. They do, like, the 9/11 memorial. And they banned it because it's insensitive to Middle Eastern students.
What?
Yeah.
Is it the crosses part, or is it the fact...
Well, that might promote Islamophobia to remind us of that thing that happened.
That's outrageous.
I'm honestly surprised it's not a federal holiday yet.
Where were you guys when that happened? It's not really related to the news at all, but...
I don't even remember.
I was in a calculus class, and everybody was like, "Are you going to let us go?" And he was like, "Nope."
I remember I was in a homeroom. I was in, I think, middle school, 6th grade. I remember that. We did not go home that day.
Yeah. Actually, how long was it between the two planes?
I remember the teacher turned off when the second one went in. She was like, "Okay, we're done watching this."
I missed that one too. I was doing something, or on my way to another class or something, and I was like, "Oh, that happened."
Our teacher turned on the TV because she was like, "It's a historical event. You guys need to see it." And then when the second plane, she was like, "Never mind," and just immediately shut it down. And we weren't allowed to talk about it anymore. They're like, "You can talk about it with your parents later."
Well, on that bright note, starting the news.
Ooh.
You know, we should remember it though. This is one of those things where it's like, hey, we're not allowed to talk about the horrible things in history that happened. No, we should talk about them. They have meaning. And
maybe learn something from them.
Yeah.
Be introspective.
So that we don't repeat the past. For example, if we were to, let's say, elect a lobbyist to be a politician that controls the thing that they lobbied for.
A lobbyist that plays a role in government. Oh, that doesn't. Verizon
never
lobbyist
happen.
is running for the New York Attorney General. Isn't New York one of the states fighting tooth and nail against the FCC's shenanigans?
Not just the FCC, but Verizon. The case is still ongoing, I believe. Now, everybody will remember Tom Wheeler. Tom Wheeler, I think, he's been whitewashed. I think it's a case of those coming behind him are so bad. It's kind of like, did you see George Bush made some statements? And he was like, "I don't think that any president could have made me look better than Donald Trump."
Oh, yeah. People love Joe. They're like, "I would love to go back to George W. Bush."
I remember when Bush was president,
Everyone
hatred
hated
for him was so powerful. And we don't even remember the bad times with Bush. Bush is like that, ex-girlfriend. It's like, why did we ever even break up, Bush?
He wasn't malicious. He's just slow.
Yeah, I never felt... Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
Yeah. So, the stories. We didn't start on the first story.
Oh.
What have I done? Well, now we got to keep going in this order because the next story rolls into that one. But yeah, Tom Wheeler was a lobbyist before he became FCC chair.
He's in charge of the cable lobby.
And so is this lady. I don't know that... I think Pi was a lawyer, right?
Yeah.
Not a lobbyist.
He was a lawyer for Verizon.
Exactly, but he wasn't a lobbyist. So
that doesn't sound like it's a lot different.
No. And we definitely have been electing FCC people from the industry. And they always make the argument where it's like, well, who better suited to know the needs of this than somebody who works in the industry?
Well, I mean, they're not completely wrong there, but it's like if they're bought and paid by that same industry, is that really the best?
I feel like we're living the old Flash cartoon sharks. Like it's sharks running around in people suits, and those are definitely sharks in people suits.
I think I missed that development on the
I
early internet. I don't know that reference.
That's a reference that very few people are going to get.
Going to be so many links in the description of that YouTube engagement.
Was that on Something Awful?
No, it's
probably like
really
a Newgrounds thing, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's like from the Homestar Runner era.
Oh, okay.
Before YouTube was even the cool place to watch things.
Oh yeah, YouTube wasn't a thing until 2007.
It was so funny. The main character had a speech impediment, and it was like South Park almost, where it was a bunch of kids, but they had been clued into like all the problems in the world were because there were sharks wearing people suits.
Of course.
Sounds like just a
cutting political
real
commentary.
Piece of hilarity there. Well, what else? Another thing that you can have a nice deep belly laugh about is Frontier trying to force its employees to lobby for it.
Frontier is a telecommunications company here in the States, and they're telling employees that this net neutrality bill in California is threatening them, and they're going to lose their jobs and blah, blah, blah.
No, you're being falseful here. Falseful, is that even a word? No, probably not.
Falseful.
But
They have a ready-made letter you can sign.
the letter does not come out and say that their jobs are threatened.
It strongly implies.
It's the implication.
There is quite the implication.
Yeah.
And they give them a nice little button to click to automatically. It's what the pro net neutrality people do as well. They give you that like form letter you can click, and you're not required to do it, but I bet they're click tracking.
Is it like the form letter that was sent on subscribers' behalf with the FCC, like the whole stolen identity thing?
I think they might have learned their lesson there.
No. I guarantee you they're going to do it anyway. If it gets dicey, they're just going to hit send on those.
They're going to send one that's like, you wouldn't believe what clicking this link will do for your page.
I better click it.
Well, now back to the story that I meant to lead with. Oops. I didn't know. Have you heard of Five Eyes before?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, we talked about Five Eyes.
Did we? That's such a terrible name. I didn't even remember it.
2 years ago. It's
like it's trying to be an insult, but not
well,
really.
it's U.S., Australia, Canada, New Zealand, and who's five?
It's that information share, Germany or somewhere.
I thought they were
EU
all...
or I don't know. The Five, like we talked with the context we talked about it before was when the NSA wants to spy on an American citizen, they just have people like MI6 do it in the UK.
I don't know if the EU is part of it. I think it's a different thing. But yeah, Five Eyes. It's a agreement between nations, and they have come out. And again, it's much like the form letter. They're not saying that they're definitely going to force encryption, but the implication is very severe.
The agreement is apparently to force the industry to provide a quote unquote lawful access through backdoors, but like there's no implementation details, there's no guidance. I mean, a backdoor is not smart enough to know if it's law enforcement or the bad guys. So it's going to lower everybody's security overall. Honestly, if you're Google or some other service provider and you're watching this and you want to get ahead of it, you need to provide a way for individuals to do their own encryption and take the encryption away from the service provider so that it no longer matters.
Yeah, but they're saying that they will pass legislation that would make that illegal.
At least it will be transparent. I feel like a lot of the stuff that's happening with this is happening behind closed doors. Like there are warrants executed and people have no idea. And because people have no idea, I think that there are people that are getting those warrants that say, if people are going to know about this, I'm going to be a little more conservative. But if nobody's ever going to know about it, hell, I need the whole thing.
Well, you're looking through rose-colored glasses. What's going to make them not use the secret court for this too? United Kingdom was the other one. That's why it was so easy to forget.
Oh, okay. Well, they're exiting the Brexit or whatever.
Yeah.
Is that going through now?
Ooh, they're trying. I don't know. That's one of those things you see in the headline every week, and it's like Trump. I'm so desensitized to it. I don't even keep up with it anymore.
Engagement challenge. Somebody that lives there, tell us what's going on in the comments. How bad is it?
And then they'll all argue amongst themselves. We have a couple Brits in our Twitch chat, and they'll argue about Brexit in the chat.
Some pro, some con, mostly pro. We don't know.
Well, one thing I think we've demonstrated on the Level 1 News time and time again, and you can't argue against this. This is objectively true. The U.S. government is incredible at coming up with acronyms.
That's true.
In this case, it's just Bernie Sanders. So Bernie Sanders has introduced the BEZOS Act.
Stop Bezos.
S Bezos. I don't know. I think the headline just says Bezos, but it's...
Well, but it's the B stands for bad employer. So, like, without stop, couldn't it be that you're encouraging bad employers?
Usually that's how it works in Congress.
What's the acronym stand for? Let's read it
Stop bad employers by zeroing out subsidies. Woo. And it's just a total coincidence.
How much
that spells that, yeah.
Like, do you think we'll get to a future where the government accountability is such that we can tell you to the penny how much it costs for legislators to come up with that name?
Oh, yeah. They spent at least 2 hours on it.
Well, you got to keep in mind that, we operate at a deficit. So if you can always look at it as not only could there be a price on it, but there's also an interest rate because we borrowed that money. But so what he's wanting to do here, and I disagree with this, but I do agree. What Bernie Sanders is saying is we need to stop corporate welfare. Sounds good, right? Why would giant corporations get welfare? But that's not really what this is about. What he wants to do is he wants to take every employee that works for Amazon or Walmart. Walmart is also being targeted here, but I guess Walton didn't fit in with the.
They tried. That actually took another 2 hours. They realized they couldn't put a W in, and they're like, oh, never mind.
But if you are on some sort of welfare and you work for one of these companies, he wants to tax that company whatever the government is paying for your welfare.
So, in other words, if you work for Walmart, but you don't make enough money that you qualify for like food stamps or some other assistantship program, whatever the government is paying to assist you with that, they would turn around and then tax your employer.
And you think, oh, will that go to me? No. No, that'll go to the government, who will then spend it on munitions.
Man, think how great that'll be for them.
Good news.
Liberating Venezuela.
No.
Now, we will talk about, here's a tease for the next episode of Level 1 News. We will talk about repulsive corporate welfare, real corporate welfare in the telecom industry in the next episode of the Level 1 News. What Sanders is talking about is not corporate welfare.
No, the telecom industry is probably approaching $1 trillion if you go back to the 80s.
Oh, but it's way more than that. Because they get the tax breaks too.
Oh, yeah, if you count.
Now, I bet Amazon does get some serious tax breaks, but that's what you
sure.
should be going after.
Well, Amazon gets tax breaks coming and going because, like, they were putting warehouses and stuff in. And it's like, hey, we'll put a warehouse in your state and give you a bunch of jobs, but we want a sweetheart deal on the taxes.
But then, unintended consequences. How long before Amazon just packs up and leaves?
Yeah.
So, I mean, hey.
How long before that warehouse employs 3 people and 7,000 robots?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Bernie Sanders is doing major things for robot development here. He doesn't even know it. He has no idea. Well, the Justice Department also came out this week, and this is a very nebulous announcement. It doesn't really, they don't go into a lot of details, but they're saying that social media companies are hurting competition.
Now, I read this article twice, and this is from Market Watch, and so maybe this is people that know what they're talking about. I don't know. But if you read through this, it's like, well, the gist of it to me seems to be that there's not a lot of social media companies, and because of that, maybe there's some kind of collusion or stifling competition, blah, blah, blah. And then it occurred to me, what if you reread this and substituted social media companies for just old guard media companies? Like Sinclair Broadcasting and things like that. It would seem to me that if the DOJ is going to make this argument about social networks, it applies equally, if not more so, to Disney and Sinclair and
The other one that controls everything.
Yeah, I mean, that seems kind of odd.
You mean those same companies who are threatened by social media taking over?
Yeah. So it's what's going on here, fellas?
Now this came in light of the Twitter hearing that we had this week, where Jack Dorsey was forced to explain himself.
We actually have 2 versions of this story in 2 different sections, I think. But that's good.
It's been a slow news week.
This wasn't a story about the hearing per se.
Oh, okay.
But that's just like...
It's a teaser.
It was the topic du jour. So the DOJ was like, oh, let's make a statement about that. Yeah, I don't think much of any consequence came from the Twitter thing, except for they finally banned Alex Jones.
Yeah.
And...
So, in other words, the DOJ statement is we're keeping one of our 5 eyes on you, social media companies.
Well, when they do keep their eyes on you, it's going to be easier than ever, thanks to some new IBM technology.
This is amazing. So, IBM has gotten with the NYPD to use the NYPD surveillance footage to develop technology that lets police search by skin color. It's literally that scene from Family Guy where he's at the border and the Border Patrol guy holds up the card that it's like, these are the okay colors, these are the not okay colors. We now have an algorithm for that.
Look at this header image. I was like, hey, Bob,
bizarre, yeah.
We need like an animated image to talk about capturing skin color. He was like, bro, all I got's MS Paint.
Let's make a GIF.
And a VCR, apparently.
Yeah.
A VCR from the 80s.
Yeah, so it's not the skin color is the headline. That's like what are they doing? Oh, that's racist. But it also does clothing color and hair color and a variety of other tracking metrics. It's very sophisticated.
Taxpayers in New York City that are paying 50% in taxes, apparently a portion of that is going to maintain this vast video archive of video footage going back for years.
And that footage is being given to IBM, who is not the government, to train this particular algorithm.
Neat, huh?
Going back to 2012.
Oh, dear. What has gone wrong here?
Yeah. Unfortunate. Oh, we're being asked to help shape our Engadget experience.
We don't really want to.
I would prefer not to. There's no close button.
Oh my gosh, it just stays up.
Our next story is about
We can't even read it.
tech companies giving assistance to lawful requests from law enforcement.
Oh, it's got validation on it.
This is the worst
can we
UX.
just-
They're like, we need to improve our UX. How do we
okay.
do that?
Okay, you can just reload it.
A non-closable window.
Crisis averted.
Apple is creating an online portal for law enforcement data requests. Now, you might remember Apple from last year where they were like, no, we're not going to decrypt our iPhones.
You may have heard of Apple.
Yeah, they're kind of a big deal
Hardware
in the tech
company
industry.
and software.
We don't have a lot of stories.
Small
we
indie
We
company.
got to fill it up with nonsense.
Yeah.
But this, I mean, it sounds bad, but really all they're doing is just sort of streamlining the process because they're getting so many demands from law enforcement. And this might actually give users who are being inquired about some transparency, but probably not.
No.
Knowing Apple,
No transparency.
do you think they'll create a portal for tracking Chinese dissidents?
Yes. But they won't be transparent about it like China has been, which is weird.
It'll have that nice like rounded corner animated GUI that Apple is known for, where you can drag and drop your dissidents into into the raid list.
What do you think? What do you think the algorithm will score you for being the wrong color? Like how much do you think that'll be weighted?
Well, I mean, there's not a lot of differently colored people in China. I mean, compared to the U.S. So, are we talking about just different shades of Asian?
Yeah, well, I'm thinking that
What is wrong? Which side of the spectrum is better?
they're going to be the ones
Yeah,
that
Wendell.
said that. I don't,
Yeah, Wendell. Tell us.
I'm thinking that in 2 or 3 years, when this reaches fever pitch epidemic, that they're just going to use genetic information and genetic markers instead of skin color. It's like, no, we don't use skin color anymore. We use your genetic profile.
Is that supposed to like
Yeah.
make it sound more scientific, like when they used to do like head measurements and it was like, listen, it's science.
Yeah,
People with
exactly.
larger heads, smarter.
You get on the subway and you grab like the little handhold thing, you feel a prick, and you're like, what? Oh, it's the subway AI. It doesn't know my genetic makeup yet, so it's testing.
Yeah, it's coming.
It's going to test your blood. And you know who else might need a blood test after this week? I bet you heard of this one.
Well, it's been all over the internet.
We've actually toned down the Elon Musk news this week, but Jesus Christ, it's like every week it's like he's watching the Level 1 news and is like, all right, my time in the light to shine. It's
You
like,
classic
what do I need to
Elon
do?
Musk. He's a big Level 1 fan. He's bought half the stuff in our store.
I don't think he'd be a fan.
No, I don't think so either.
But this one, this is kind of a non-story. We'll go
It
ahead
really
and
is a
admit it.
non-story.
But it's funny because everybody knows that Elon Musk smoked a joint this week on Joe Rogan's podcast.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, actually, it was a blunt. I'm sorry. Someone will correct me for that.
What's the difference?
A blunt is a cigar paper. So it's tobacco roll with marijuana inside.
Wow.
A joint is simply rolling paper.
Of course.
Right.
The distinction really
she's
matters.
so innocent.
Yeah.
Anyway, I don't think the Air Force even cared, but so the Air Force has involvement with Musk because of SpaceX. He's got some kind of security clearance. And the rule is if you have security clearance, you must follow the federal laws
Not state.
on drug laws, not state. So he did violate something by smoking pot. But it seems like the Air Force doesn't really care.
I mean, it is sort of a non-story. I mean, like he's tanking everything else in his life. I mean, let the man have a joint.
Can you imagine? Can you imagine?
He's in a legal state.
You're on the International Space Station, and they're like, listen, guys, that oxygen delivery is going to be a little slow this month because Elon Musk smoked a joint.
They're already freaking out about their little,
You know that
their
hole
little
you
hole.
got?
Yeah.
Well, we want to top off your oxygen, but we can't. Sorry. Because there's this plant that grows, and some people like to set fire to
No,
it.
don't freak out right now because you're wasting more oxygen the more you breathe. So
Well, this is a story. I'm sorry. We just can't relate to it. I mean, living in a country that shapes culture for the entire world, we just we can't get our heads around this one. No.
TechCrunch has got an article about how the EU is moving ahead with cultural quotas for streaming services. So, like services like Netflix, by law, would be required to provide 30% of their catalog would be stuff from that country, like cultural EU, whatever, I guess. So 30% like Gerard Depardieu.
Well, but not if it's produced in the U.S. It's got to be like pure French
Yeah.
production.
Gerard
Either
Depardieu would
Doctor
not be
Who and
produced anywhere
Sherlock
else.
need to be on Netflix now to like get a. I guess the British won't be in the EU soon, so you couldn't even do British shows.
They'll probably do their own version of this, though.
Yeah.
But yeah, and the really cool thing about it, or the really dystopian thing about it, depending on how you look at it, is not only must you have it, but it must be prominently displayed. Like you can't hide it away in its own category that no one cares about.
What if the content's genuinely awful?
Doesn't
I
matter.
mean, it doesn't. Yeah.
It's a great time to be a French documentary filmmaker because Netflix is going to take whatever crap you throw at them because they got to hit that quota.
They've got surprisingly, they have a lot of Asian dramas on there,
Yeah.
and it's like,
Well, aren't the Korean soap operas
Yeah.
super popular?
yeah, they're all over Netflix. But I've not seen anything like there's not like Bulgarian soap operas on Netflix as far as I'm aware.
I like some of
But now
those
there will be.
Japanese comedy shows because it is a totally different, cultural kind of comedy. But
Yeah.
sometimes it crosses over in a kind of a juvenile way, usually.
Yeah.
Well, Google, this is
Wendell only watches Star Trek, so that's why he's confused.
You can get stuff other than Star Trek on there?
okay. So let me throw out. We got plenty of time this week because the stories are short. So let's give you a hypothetical situation, right? You know how the weebs will sometimes learn Japanese just so they can watch anime? Let's say somebody made a next generation caliber Star Trek show, but it was in like Croatia or something. Would you learn that language to fully enjoy it?
He'd probably pick it up just watching it. That's what the weebs do.
Yeah.
Like they watch it and then they learn really informal Japanese because they've watched so much anime. And then if they try to like go to Japan or speak to a Japanese person, it's like, whoa, they're way too casual with their speech, or like they're using a lot of slang. You'd probably do that if you learned Croatian.
I probably would study the subtitles, yeah. I mean, if I pick it up, great, but I don't know that I would make a special effort for it.
What if there were no subtitles?
That would be problematic.
Yeah.
Well, I'd probably just download the subtitles from the internet, because that's a thing.
Not always.
You would go to the forums and be like, who knows Croatian?
What? Okay, let's take it deeper. Let's say there's something really philosophical, because some of those Star Trek episodes, they got a little heavy-handed with that stuff. And there's like there's a split, there's a schism among the fan subs. One thinks it means this, the other thinks it means this, and you have to know.
It would take me years to learn the language well enough to understand the subtle aspects
Differences.
of it. Yeah. It's just, that wouldn't be fun. Probably wouldn't be fun. I don't know that I would enjoy that. Maybe.
Do you have like a language learning module in yourself? Do you feel like you pick up languages well, or?
I did. I had to study French and Latin, so I did okay. Like, I couldn't do the pronunciation, but I could read okay. I mean, it was like hillbilly French. It's really terrible.
Well, we talk about, this is not really a new story. Google will usually let you know, eventually, when they're allowed to, that you're under investigation. And recently, they've let a lot of people know, well, dozens, that they're under investigation by the FBI.
This appears to be related to people that bought remote access tools from a questionable forum where things like hacks are sold. But at least one of the people targeted by the investigation bought it for their own internal use.
Well, it's not illegal to buy it. That's the important distinction here. Like,
It's intent.
It's the intention.
you're allowed to own it, you're allowed to buy it, but I think creating it and selling it, maybe there was some sort of law against that.
No, you can create it as well. It's all intent. If you create it for criminal purposes, then that's illegal. But if you create it because
How would they ever prove that other than you admitting it?
you have to say that you're a criminal, or you have to be interviewed, or they have to say.
Well, they got the creators, I think, on something.
Yes. Well, it's so you have communications that it's really a messed up situation. So like somebody will show up and say something like, "Hey, can I use this to like monitor my mom?" And it's like, "Yeah, I guess." And it's like, "Hey, can I use this to monitor my coworker?" And it's like, "I mean, I guess if you want to." And so then if you say that crosses the line, because it's like, well, I'm not in IT. I just want to monitor them. And if you're like, yeah, whatever, I don't care, that's not good enough. It's like the lie detector guy, where the people were telling the lie detector guy, hey, I want to use this to become a criminal, and he's like, I didn't hear that, I don't want to know that, because they told him that somehow made him culpable.
I think there might be a little more nuance to it. I'm not sure that your legal expertise here is on point, but for whatever reason, they are tracking everybody who bought the software.
Yeah, which doesn't seem right.
Yeah, and there is definitely no provable crime with some of those people.
Yeah.
So, unfortunate. Well, we talk a lot about memes, and one thing, we were talking about the Star Trek thing. One thing that comes up pretty often are we'll get nasty comments from people who watch these, and they'll be like, I can't believe how racist you're being, or I can't believe how insensitive you're being. And it was a joke the whole time, and it totally went over their head. Because some people just, they're humorless. And unfortunately, there are a lot of them watching this. And that is maybe what makes this next story extra terrifying.
Saudi Arabia has declared online satire a punishable offense.
Look how happy he looks about it, too. His smug aura mocks me.
I think that's the prince.
Aren't there multiple princes?
I think they murdered the rest of them.
Wow.
There's crazy stuff that went down in Saudi Arabia. They locked that one guy in a hotel for like 6 months or something.
They have like a huge royal family. I don't even know all the
stripped away a lot of their money. I don't know. I don't know enough about that to go into it any further, but we can talk about this story, which is 6 months, I think it was, and a hefty fine for anything. Let me read this. Ridicules, mocks, provokes, and disrupts public order, religious values, and public morals through social media will be considered a cybercrime. 5 years. Oh, it's not 6 months. It's 5 years. And 3 million rials, which is $800,000.
Woo.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's Mohammed bin Salman. Is that gentleman there?
That seems kind of not good from a human rights standpoint.
Well, it's pretty open. I mean, you could fit almost anything.
Yeah.
You could fit everybody's tweets into one of those categories if you really wanted to.
If it were 1776, the Federalist Papers would totally be in there.
So, yeah, be careful what you tweet or
in
post.
Saudi Arabia.
I would delete my account, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not worth it.
Listen, everyone needs to see that picture of Beyonce yelling at her foot, and I had to post it.
Africa's taking a slightly different tack than making satire illegal.
Then it's catching on. This is one of those really unpopular pieces of legislation that other nations look at and they're like, ooh, I'll have some of that.
Benin is the
you think that's how that's pronounced?
I don't know.
Benin.
I don't know. They're taxing the internet, but it's mostly just social media that they're taxing.
It is, what was it, like 0.008 francs, whatever that amounts to, per megabyte when you're using Facebook, WhatsApp, and Twitter, but also 5% fee for texting and calls.
I like to imagine, like, what's the next social media hit? Do you have to have a certain number of users before you get into that tax bracket where everyone has to be taxed for using it?
It's completely arbitrary.
Yeah.
They just decide. So, yeah, that's one of those things where, it's like when you're Twitch streaming or, doing something online and you get that first spam troll, you're like, oh, I've made it. I got my first spam troll. They care enough to try and deceive these poor people. So, yeah, it's a good day when you get that letter.
It's like, hey, we're going to start taxing people for using your service.
But they mention, actually, they mention all the other countries in Africa that have done this. And, here we go. Zambia, Uganda, Kampala. I think there was one more. But anyway, yeah. Lots of African nations now taxing the internet. And the people there we looked at, what was it, Uganda we looked at? And it was something like 13% of your annual salary would go to internet tax.
If you wanted to blog.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, if you want, I remember that story.
Seems like a great way to not be on the internet and to keep the status quo.
Well, you know who else is on the internet who maybe shouldn't be? Old people.
There's not really a lot here. West Virginia is offering cybersecurity training to the elderly. This is a program in some like community colleges, from what I gather.
Well, it's publicly funded. That's why it's in the government section. I thought there was more to it when I added it, and it's like 2 paragraphs of, they call it cybersecurity. Maybe a misuse of that buzzword.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because basically what they're teaching them is like,
Don't click on links.
Not every download button is the download button that you want.
Listen, I know you're lonely, but don't reply to the spammer.
Oh, yeah. Don't click the ads.
Training over.
This young girl on Tinder, she did not really want to talk to you.
There aren't hot singles in your area. You live in West Virginia.
Oh,
wow.
They're getting the downvotes.
Well,
Harsh.
listen, we're from
And
Kentucky. We know.
talk about a glass house.
Yeah. Throwing stones here over the border.
Well, do you remember Wannacry and a litany of other terrible hacks that have happened? We've been blaming North Korea all along. And I'm one of those people who's like, really, North Korea? Is that just an easy scapegoat? Well, the DOJ says, no, we know exactly who he is, and we want to charge him.
Yeah, the DOJ has announced charges against the North Korean hacker for the Sony and Wannacry cyber attacks. I tried to go down the rabbit hole a little bit on this. So the guy, the guy that they got is a North Korean national, but he apparently worked for a company that was a joint venture between North and South Korea that had something to do with the lottery. Like they got this company together, and it was going to be like this lottery between North and South Korea, and it was some kind of joint venture, and then South Korea broke it off, but North Korea kept it going and then turned it into a cyber intelligence company or something. And
what?
Then, yeah, it was really like, the more I read, it was just like, this is crazy. I don't even know what's going on here. So he was apparently one of the people that worked for that company, which is how he got funding. And these hacks are something that happened as a result of that.
We'd also worked in China. They found several real jobs that he had had. And he had been to China and North Korea and one other company or country. I think it was in Europe somewhere. But he had been all over. And you get the idea that he's just a talented guy. He's not necessarily an evil North Korean hacker, but the government found out he was a talented North Korean guy, and they were like, hey, do some hacks. And he was like, hey, whatever, man.
Or your family
pay the
will be
bills.
destroyed.
Yeah.
You don't say no.
I wonder if that's a mitigating factor. It's like, the feds pick you up and it's like, they're going to kill my family.
The United States government's like, yeah, that's not our problem.
Yeah, probably.
Well, if he's smart, he just never leaves again.
Well, they announced his name in the papers. They're probably already dead, if that's the thing.
Oh.
No, he's too valuable. He's locked up, and him and his family are locked up underground somewhere, and he's, coding furiously to try to keep them alive.
Wannacry 2, Electric Boogaloo.
He has to find he's got to repeat the Sony hack every year from now on, or somebody loses a finger.
Speaking of people losing a finger, let's talk about the Intel supply chain.
Or lack thereof. Seems like, now this is from I like how semi-accurate this website. They are so salty that people keep stealing their stories in this article.
Yeah.
But they came up with this there was a webpage that was accidentally left unprotected from a reseller. And they were really, really upset that Intel could not deliver.
HP Enterprise. HP Enterprise is literally saying, look, we can't get 14 nanometer Xeons. You're going to have to deal with it by selling more Epyc CPUs, which I'm sure is not bad news for AMD.
I bet somebody got a really angry phone call from Intel.
Yeah. It's like, well, I don't know what
Now,
you expect us to do.
Considering all those facts, do you think it was truly a mistake that was left unprotected?
No, I don't think so. Historically, HP has not cared. This is not a high enough margin thing for HP to really worry about it. But I do think that Intel had set up production for a lot of 10 nanometer stuff, and because they were just like, oh, we just need to figure out the right ratio of like arsenic and silicon, or arsenic and some other compound, or gallium, or whatever they're adding to try to make it work. And so I think that there are probably rooms and rooms full of stuff set up for 10 nanometer. 10 nanometer is not going to come. So I don't think it's going to take them very long to retrofit that 10 nanometer stuff into 14 nanometer production, because it looks like they're producing chipsets and other stuff at 14 nanometer, which would make zero sense if they're having Xeon production problems at 14 nanometer, because you can make the chipsets on the older processes. So I don't know what's going on there.
Well, for this next story, I have to admit, our collaboration software screws up Tom's Hardware links. Come on, Tom's Hardware. Take the dots out of your
Commas.
links. Come on.
Commas.
No, it's not a comma, is
It's
it?
a comma. The commas in the URL are not good.
We put all of our news stories in a giant post at the beginning of the week, and then
Oh,
as we
yeah,
see
it is
new
a
ones, we
comma.
add them. And for whatever reason, Tom's Hardware URLs always mess up.
Disgusting. It's something some kind of internal tracking thing they're adding there, a number. But anyway, I didn't read this one.
Not related.
Amazon has announced $55 Athlon 200 GEs with Vega graphics and second generation Ryzen Pros. Ryzen Pro is aimed at business users. It's Ryzen CPUs, but they are what is said to be business stable, which means that a company like Dell or HP can make a Ryzen-based computer from every year for the next 3 years or 5 years or whatever, and it's stabilized. But the news here is really that you can get, like, OEMs have the ingredients necessary to build cheap OEM systems, which honestly is how Intel makes a lot of money. So if AMD is able to get any kind of market share here, that's just going to be good for AMD. And $55 CPUs, it's pretty capable. 2 cores, 4 threads. It's meh.
That's pretty meh, yeah.
Vega graphics.
It's a glowing recommendation from Wendell. It's
Yeah. Well, it's
Listen,
for business machines. I mean, it's pretty good for those.
it can do all those really important business critical things like Facebook, Imager, Reddit.
Probably 20 or 30 Chrome tabs. Honestly, the more expensive component of the machine is going to be the SSD and the RAM.
Well, the big story of 2016 and some of 2017, not the big story, but a big story, was Volkswagen. They cheated. They tested their cars' emissions, and the cars were built to detect the test and lie. Now, that's a disgusting thing, and hopefully we don't see that in any other industries, because it's pathetic.
Oh, wait, it's happening with mobile phones. Huawei and Honor, or their phones are detecting benchmarks and giving erroneous results, and Anantech figured it out.
Yeah, so they detect popular benchmarking software, and when they do, they take off all the thermal and power limits, and they just rape your battery for everything that they can to try to boost those benchmark scores, and it works really well. Anantech confronted them about it, and they didn't quite admit it, but they certainly didn't deny it.
Why? Why has the mobile phone market gotten so competitive for stuff like that? Or do people? I mean, I guess you think it's Fortnite on phones that are driving that.
I think it's reviewers, because maybe it's just people that I see on YouTube, but like there's a lot of mobile phone reviewers and people who are looking into that thing, and it's like if one of those guys pans your phone, then you might not get as many sales.
Well,
I don't think the normies go that far.
Oh, they do.
You think?
Oh yeah, some of those like mobile phone review channels have like hundreds and thousands of
Now,
subscribers,
they
more
talk-
than us.
They talk about the Chinese market is apparently very sensitive to these things, and that's one of the things they blame for that.
it's like people in China want to buy the fastest phone ever.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
it's a status thing, isn't it, over there? I think it probably is here too, to an extent, but like I think in China it's way more.
They're so focused on numerics. You got your social score, you got your phone score.
Here, we think 1/3 is smaller than 1/4. So
Are you talking about the quarter pounder?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Burger King tried to do the third pounder and it failed because people
America.
didn't understand.
Americans are so dumb. Numerics just don't really matter here.
I think it's one of those things where it's like we don't live in a more violent world. We live in a more news heavy world.
Yeah.
So it's not that Americans are that much stupider. It's just that our stupidity is out there in everybody's face constantly. Maybe. I don't know. Well, one thing about America, we love sugar. And maybe that will make us particularly good at this NASA challenge.
Any of you academics out there, if you got a way to turn CO2 into sugar in the very thin Martian atmosphere, NASA is going to give you not $1 million, but $750,000. If you submit your paper and you're a finalist, you get like $50,000. But they're going to select 10 finalists or 25
Is this like
finalists.
spec work for science?
Yeah, basically.
Essentially, yeah. No, I think if you get all the way through, it's ultimately $1 million. But there's like several phases.
Maybe.
You don't have to win all the phases, but if you did win all the phases, you'd get the $1 million.
Oh, okay. It will be a total of $1 million. The final prize is just shy of
Do you
$1
think
million.
that they'll do
So-
like profiles on the scientists, and it's like vote for your favorites now on your phone? Like,
Here's what they think that Mars pioneers are going to be living in.
like a little mushroom.
And they need a way to turn that thin carbon dioxide into sugar so that people can eat.
That's going to be a poor diet.
I was going to say, it seems like such a bizarre thing to be looking for.
Well, they talked about how, because sugar can be used to start fermentation and all that. There's a lot you can do with sugar. So they figure if they have that as a building block, they can take it other places.
Oh, yeah, you can do biofuel.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of exciting stuff. That's the end of the first episode of Level 1 News. Woo!
Yay.
I wonder if we got our Patreon podcast up by now.
I doubt it.
No, I don't think so. I didn't post it. I don't think
that's
it's
coming.
been done yet.
So
But
thanks to our patrons.
Maybe by the time they see this.
no, maybe.
All right. See you tomorrow. And don't forget our exciting follow-up. What was the story we were going to talk about? Oh, real corporate welfare.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Krista, quickly, announce the date. Quickly.
September 12th,
What are you eating?
a Nutter Butter. I didn't eat before I came here.
What's a Nutter Butter for our international viewers?
It's a peanut butter cookie
And that's because you forgot
shaped like a peanut.
you forgot to eat before doing the news.
I did. I had a cup of coffee this morning.
So this is going to be an extra low energy Level 1 news. There's no news this week either, which is super frustrating.
I mean, there's some, but
No.
obviously
Well,
there's some because we're here.
The,
But
the things that dominated the headlines this week are not things we want to talk about. Not necessarily technologically inclined. Now, we talked about Stop Bezos, and we teased a real example of corporate welfare, and we have it. What acronym could we come up for a bill to stop this kind of thing?
AT&T.
What does that stand for?
Advancing Telecommunications and Telecom.
Anti-telecom tantruming. Well, what they're doing here, or they've done it. It's been done. Is
They got it
promising
done.
things, taking money for said promises, and not delivering.
It didn't start with the 96 Telecommunications Act, but things got real egregious in 1996. And then from then forward, it's just been crazy. This is recent, though. AT&T and other telecommunications companies have nabbed billions in tax breaks. And in exchange for that, they're like, look, we're running up against a wall with our infrastructure. We got to upgrade our infrastructure. We don't think we need net neutrality in law, but we got these magical things planned for our network upgrades and our backhaul and our last mile customers. Oh, we got so many customers in that last mile, especially those rural customers. We're going to have to employ so many people to get out there to get to those rural customers. And now, nothing.
Well, actually, less than nothing. They're laying people off. They also talk about how when they negotiate these kinds of things, they will take routine costs and they'll go to the government and be like, look, we need some tax breaks. Look at all these expenses we're going to add. But they were going to do it anyway. And in one case, they promised bonuses to their employees, and the employees did get those bonuses. But they had already negotiated with the union to grant those bonuses. So that was going to happen no matter what. But we gave them tax dollars for the bonuses. So, yeah.
It's if lobbyists or politicians actually want to understand what's going on here, they could look at telecom, small and boutique telecom providers like that one in Tennessee. The one in Tennessee's done a really good job because it's not really municipal, it's kind of private, but they've done a good job managing what meager resources they have and providing service. Vermont, there's a lot of ISPs in rural Vermont that have figured out really innovative ways to provide high-speed service to their customers. We need that kind of innovation.
I love how you say it's like, if lawmakers want to take a look at this.
as if they do.
Yeah, their pockets are being lined. That's why this happens in the first place. They got re-election campaigns that need funded.
They're busy in the Hamptons drinking pills and
I really wish it would get politicians off their butt if it's like, look, do you want do you want America to be like Australia? Because that's where we're headed.
Oh my God, they would love that.
Yeah.
That's
No
the
guns,
dream.
no internet. Like
Yeah. Let's just step
Everything
on our
costs too
people.
much.
Exactly. That's a perfect world in their idealism. So you know what?
oh, now they have to hear you wrestle around with it.
Well,
Probably okay. You got a new cable, so hopefully it's less
Better.
background noise.
a lot of people love to talk about how much they hate Trump. And this is another great example of unintended consequences. Because the tariffs have been in the news. That's the big news we don't want to talk about, stuff like that. But these tariffs, I think a lot of people don't realize exactly how they're going to affect them. But a lot of people are about to realize.
Apple is saying that a lot of their products, the watch and the AirPods and other stuff, are going to be hurt by these tariffs. And, Trump tweeted about this, and he said, great, manufacture it in America. That was his response.
I mean,
he's not wrong. I think he's being a little starry-eyed into thinking that will ever happen.
They'll just leave.
Now, they talk about here what they're going to do just to bring this home. This is going to be a line item when you buy something from the Apple Store. So you buy your iPhone, and it's like, hey, what is this line? And that's where they're going to explain it to you. That's the tariff.
So that will put political pressure on making the tariff go away because the citizenry is like, what is happening?
Yep.
That's the idea.
One of the ways
The end.
One of the ways that Apple aims to shape political speech. And what are the other ways?
Banning apps. Alex Jones is insane, but this sets a dangerous precedent.
Alex Jones. Now, Apple had previously banned him from something, right? But this is the entire InfoWars line of apps and services.
It was the Spotify app banned him, which is not.
Well, almost
Apple.
everybody has banned him at this point.
Yeah.
But Apple, now a lot of those were his personal social media accounts, but this is his business, InfoWars. Now remember when he was blocked from a series of services, his apps became wildly popular.
Yeah.
They became more popular than CNN. So now it's like, oh, you want to try to take that route? No.
You think maybe it was banned only because it became popular? Because he's playing a character. Like, he's not actually that insane. He just appears to be that insane.
They mentioned. So here's the ruling.
Good job.
They claim that he violated this content that is offensive, insensitive, upsetting, intended to disgust, or in exceptionally poor taste.
Are they going to get rid of all the fart apps then?
That reads like the Saudi Arabia thing that's
It does.
illegal.
That's very similar.
Yeah.
And it's very subjective. So, who decides? And in this case, Apple themselves decide.
And also, Krista has a good point because
There's a lot of like gross out apps where it's like, just plays burping noises or farting noises,
kids love that.
Yeah.
Kids love InfoWars.
But I mean.
The one they always point back to, and I suppose this is pretty disgusting, but it is his, he will often claim that school shootings didn't actually happen. So that parents of dead kids have to hear that they're crisis actors and their kids aren't really dead. So, but it's not something that should happen. We should, as a society, we should be able to recognize these things for what they are and either ignore them, or if you want to consume it, fine. It's free speech. But of course, at the same time, it's up to Apple what they put on their store, I guess.
It's frustrating. It's a difficult issue to cope with.
It doesn't affect me at all. I'm able to not care about this at all because I won't use Apple products. So, hey, that's the way to do it.
Even before the Android stuff. Androids or Google Play.
I'm going to burn my Apple products in the backyard.
It will be really funny if Google Play bans those kind of apps because there's the store is just not even curated. It is mostly garbage in Google Play.
Yeah.
That is a strange hill for them to die on.
There'll be somebody just ripping all of Alex Jones' videos from YouTube, making their own app, selling it for $1.
And that will be fine.
Yeah.
It's like, no, we reviewed this. It's totally okay. And it's like, Google, what are you smoking?
Well, Apple might lose a few customers from this. Probably not. But what they also might lose that's more disconcerting to them, I'm sure, is their number one status.
Amazon is, I don't know if we reported that Amazon became the second $1 trillion company.
I don't think it happened before last filming.
Well, you don't. I thought it was briefly, and then it went back down, and then it's gone up again.
I don't think we reported on it, but
I don't know. Well, Amazon is growing faster than Apple is growing, so Apple will probably be a larger $1 trillion company before.
And they have market cap of $1 trillion.
Yeah,
that is a lot of money. Do you think the Stop BEZOS Act will cut into that enough to bring it back under $1 trillion?
I see. That one article didn't mention that all of the Amazon employees get stock, but at the same time, Amazon is looking to hire contractors and things like that, so that people are not really Amazon employees. Because Microsoft did that early on. I mean, when Microsoft was really small, even the people that were like doing software packaging had really modest stock options, and pretty much all of those people became millionaires.
Amazon has more money than sense, more news at 11.
But they're also doing remember their little program where it's like, do your own delivery company. We'll help.
Yeah.
So that wouldn't count.
Yeah, you would not get. It's like you have your own company, not stock in Amazon. So, but that's. I don't know if the stock in Amazon is actually contributing significantly to the compensation package of the poorly paid.
What if? Now here's governmental unintended consequences. You crush the stock price of Amazon with Stop Bezos and bankrupt all of the package pickers in the process. Then they all have to go on government assistance.
There are some people that depend on that stock dividend for just day-to-day necessities. I mean, that is a thing. We know that's true.
Well, Bloomberg, apparently, I didn't know that Captain Obvious was now writing for Bloomberg News.
YouTube and Netflix videos are found to be slowed by wireless carriers. Verizon is, of course, mentioned by name. But yeah, these are the same companies that say that net neutrality is fine and that, there's no such thing as an unlimited wireless plan anymore. The article sort of mentions that when asked for comment, the carriers are like, oh, well, we'll throttle them for network conditions and blah, blah. And it's like, it's BS. It's 100% BS because you buy X number of gigabytes. They just don't want people to run out after 3 minutes of Netflix streaming, which should tell you something about how realistic those caps actually are.
So you wonder, how do you know this? And it turns out there's an app. What's it called? Like Weehoo or Weehee?
Weehee.
I think that's Weehee. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it. But there's this guy, he wrote an app called Weehee that tracks this kind of thing. And he is sort of the only voice that can measure this now that the FCC doesn't care anymore. And according to him, everybody's doing it. Now, this was Bloomberg. They reached out to the various companies that were accused of this, and they didn't deny it, but they said they only do traffic shaping, and they don't target individual streams, like Netflix or YouTube in particular.
Or Twitch, or...
But you would imagine that, they're looking at where the most traffic is coming from, and it's those places. So, yeah, maybe it's not hard-coded to go after Netflix and YouTube, but it amounts to the same thing.
It's a very disingenuous answer. You can also make this go away by using a VPN. But again, because there's not anything as a truly unlimited wireless package, and the data caps are tiny, what good does it do?
Nothing. You're helpless.
Yeah. Makes me sad.
If only there was an acronym we could come up with to stop these people. Well, here we go. You knew it was coming. We couldn't not do this week, right? This is the biggest story of the week if you're anywhere close to technology.
And it really shouldn't be, but
and that
here we are.
is the fact that Elon Musk took a hit off of Joe Rogan's blunt.
We should invite Timothy B. Lee, the author of this article, on to the Level 1 News. Just be like, how much hate mail did you get? Because we get a lot of angry comments that it's like, you guys are half informed, and it's like, I'm sure that he's gotten a lot of email that's like, you're a part of the problem. What is happening?
I don't really understand the hullabaloo around this. It was a legal state, and yeah, whatever. I don't really like weed, but he's a grown man.
It's that drug war propaganda, man. I mean, he was drinking too, but no one mentions that.
Yeah,
because that's totally fine. But that's that evil weed.
And he's got so many other problems that, him smoking weed is just like one tiny grain of sand on the giant hill.
That's the thing. Right alongside this, the next day, the HR executive and what was the other, accounting or something? There were two of them,
yeah, who disappeared.
They're gone.
Yeah. The one guy, he was like a marketing or, public relations type guy. His job started the day before the cave thing. The Thai boy thing.
Comments. He was like, I can't fix this. I'm out.
Yeah, so it's only been that long. And he was like, I'm done. I can't do it. I'm sorry. And then the HR person, I think, because they were getting a lot of internal complaints and stuff like that.
No, one of those two people had been on leave already for a long time. And they were just like, you know what? I'm not coming back.
Yeah. So that's bad news. The stock price, they lost $3 billion notional, 6%. And it was a bad day. And a lot of people, I think, are, the correlation is not causation. They're blaming it on him smoking the blunt.
But it's like, I think that might be other things that are contributing.
Well, also, I mean, how many Fortune 500 CEOs are on prescribed pharmaceuticals?
Oh, my God. Yes.
Or unprescribed.
Or just straight up cocaine. Yeah. Cocaine and hookers, I bet, is a big thing for, the top 5% paid company CEOs and that kind of thing. Now, I have not. Did you watch the Joe Rogan podcast?
I haven't watched
I watched
it.
part of it, yeah.
I have not, because I'm not a big fan of Musk, and I don't really hear him talk. And I hear that Joe Rogan really softballed him during the whole thing.
He really softballed him, but he didn't let him get away. You know how Musk does the hand wavy thing and starts talking about something else? Rogan did a really good job sort of corralling him back into talk about whatever it was he asked him about instead of what Musk wanted to talk about.
Yeah, Rogan is really good at that. But I was totally disappointed. Maybe I'm wrong about this, but I've not heard any reports that Musk made him answer about the pedo complaints.
I don't think that was part of it, but I haven't made it all the way through.
I'm very disappointed in Joe for that. He should have brought that up. But fortunately, Musk himself brought it back up in a.
And that's probably why that guy quit.
Yeah, in a off-the-record email.
This was crazy because he sent an email and he's like, off the record, blah, blah, blah. And then he just goes on and on ranting about the
guy is a child
the
rapist.
diver guy. And it was like, that conversation was not previously agreed to be off the record. But I don't know.
It's
not even doubling down. It's like tripling down, quadrupling down.
Yeah, we did this story last week.
Yeah, he keeps saying it.
Somebody in the comments accused us once again of being misinformed and it's not really how you said. He didn't really say those things. And then the next week he says it even worse.
Yeah.
This was an email. So, I don't know if it's the Market Watch article. I read 5 or 6 articles about this, trying to just make sure because paranoia. And the emails from Musk are just really not things that should have ever been in an email, even on the record or off the record. I mean, Jesus Christ.
He didn't come right out and say that man is a child rapist. But he did use the phrase child rapist in a way that could be construed he was talking about that guy specifically. He also said they didn't have the balls to sue him. That guy's lawyer says that's incorrect.
We do, in fact, have the balls to sue you, sir.
So, yeah, I'm sure we'll hear more about that.
Which, I mean, I doubt Musk even cares. He's got more money than sense, so he's probably just
No,
hoping
he
to make
cares.
it go away.
Oh, if he didn't care, he wouldn't be doing this.
That's true.
You ever, I don't remember if it was, you ever think about people that are old money wealthy and people that are new money wealthy? Elon Musk is new money wealthy.
Oh, yeah, he has no idea.
How things are done in these circles.
Oprah is new money wealthy.
Yeah, she's got no class. Well, you know who is old money wealthy? Goldman Sachs. Now, in the wake of the whole...
Here come the racist comments.
Because of Oprah? No, there's an article on Harper's Bazaar about Oprah's day. Go read it. And then tell me that that's not the most pretentious thing you've ever read.
So Goldman Sachs, the subject of our Patreon podcast too.
Yeah.
So.
The funding secured tweet, when that happened, and
420, obviously,
everything burst into flame. Tesla hired Goldman Sachs to be like, hey, help us figure out a way to get this funding. And I think what they came back was you can't do this.
No, it's not.
So for a while, Goldman Sachs, because of a conflict of interest, could not report on the Tesla stock. They could not give suggestions. Oh. That has now expired, and the news is not good.
$210 is what Goldman Sachs has pegged the Tesla stock at. It is currently trading around $286 at the time of this recording.
JP Morgan said it at $195.
Whoa.
So yeah, woo. A lot of the big analysts are saying that bad times for Tesla. And, partly, of course, it's because Musk is insane and he should just stop. Just stop doing whatever you're doing.
Just stop tweeting.
Stay out of the public eye. Let this thing happen. But also because Tesla has not had a big competitor yet. The other car companies are not doing a good job of making their electric cars competitive and sexy. But that might also be about to change.
Mercedes has unveiled its first Tesla rival in a $12 billion attack. Mercedes said that they're going all in on electric and that electric is coming, but there's not really a lot of details here. I'm skeptical until I see,
There's a picture right there. Look how happy all those people are.
I've seen mock-ups before.
Yeah.
They have not set a price on this thing officially. But it's a Mercedes. You'd expect it to be fairly expensive. It is going to have a range of 280 miles versus I think 240 for the Model S. I don't know what the Model 3 has.
Less.
But this is definitely going to be a Model S competitor, not a Model 3 competitor, because it's going to be expensive. But yeah, they're saying that Mercedes is saying we recognize that gasoline engines are going to be around forever. In fact, they're going to make them illegal in like 2030 in some countries, I think. So yeah, we're going hard into electric, and this is our first attempt. It's pretty.
It's pretty.
The greatest thing about that,
Wait for benchmarks.
because it's a Mercedes, you are not legally required to use your turn signal. That's the most convenient. I mean, you pay for convenience, but hey, how great is that? Well, this is not surprising, and they've done it before. But I think a lot of people who are sort of like going for the least worst option, the evil they know, are going to be upset.
So Microsoft has, quote unquote, confirmed that Windows 7 is going to have a new monthly charge if you want security updates past its end of life day. Now, Microsoft has always said that Windows 7 is going to hit end of life. But for corporate customers, in the past, Microsoft has let you spend a bunch of money and continue to receive security patches and security updates for an obsolete operating system, even past its sunset date. So this is some type of extension to individual customers as well for a monthly charge. But I'll tell you right now, Microsoft has basically already abandoned Windows 7 from a security standpoint, and it is a second-class citizen compared to Windows 10 security, which is also, by comparison, not great, but Windows 7 is terrible.
Now, a lot of people, and we talk about Elon Musk, a lot of people think that he will ultimately be the ultimate fall from grace story, that it's all going to come crashing down, and he's going to be just the laughing stock of the technology world because he took this empire, this amazing thing, he was everybody's hero, and he's going to lose it all. Maybe, maybe not. I would say probably not. But if it does happen, there's a template of what that's going to look like.
Blood testing company Theranos will dissolve and pay creditors.
Everybody remember Theranos? It was run by like this
Elizabeth Holmes.
Yeah, she was like, I don't know, Forbes 30 under 30, like
she dropped
female
out,
billionaire.
She
insanity.
dropped out of Yale and then it was like, oh, she's Steve Jobs. She's Bill Gates.
She's even wearing like black turtlenecks in a lot of the pictures
she was
you
the
see of her.
female Steve Jobs, yeah. And she's kind of pretty, and she's got those crazy eyes, and everybody was in love with her. They don't have any great pictures here.
No, just videos.
But she was the darling, and it was 100% fraud. So yeah, it's finally, the stock price will go to zero. There will be nothing left of Theranos, and the unsecured creditors will get royally screwed.
Although the article does say that the creditors are going to be paid, just not what they are owed.
No, they have
So
80 million
not paid
outstanding and 10 million in assets.
Yeah. So you get...
It's a little bit of a haircut, isn't it?
A little bit. It's a little bad.
Now, next story we've reported on already in the government section, but there's a technological aspect to it as well.
I didn't realize that these were two separate stories, and I don't know why I didn't. But one was more about the skin color. It shows you how, this is TechSpot. I don't remember who the other one was, but it's like
The Intercept.
one news site got outraged about one thing, and the other one got outraged by a different thing. They're both pretty outrageous.
We include both because it's honestly a good read. It's good to have some different perspectives, but also unintended consequences. I mean, who would say that the New York police having body cams, for example, is a bad thing? I mean, you can audit police activity in public. You can see the interactions with the public. How could you possibly turn that into a bad thing? And then it's like, well, that footage never goes away. It's available forever. And incorporated with that footage is a lot of other footage from CCTV cameras, traffic cameras, all this kind of stuff. That's what went into IBM, a private company, not a government entity, went into their database. And we as citizens don't have any input or oversight into how that data would be used.
There's no
or
accountability.
monetized. There's no accountability. There's no transparency. There was no, hey, can we take this thing in the government space and use it in the private space? Is everybody who's in here, are New York citizens, okay with this?
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
Do you think, so, just to go back to the skin color one, I imagine that they're going to get some kind of like RGB or hex value that tags you as a color. So will we eventually get to a world where you get like your color tattooed on your arm or something,
It's part of your profile.
and it's part of your gang affiliation.
Well, I'm thinking
So it's like you can't join unless you're between this range.
it'll be interesting how it deals with like interesting lighting conditions too, because having done like paintings and stuff, the shadows on your face can actually be dramatically different than what we'd consider like standard skin tones. It might be more purple or even green or blue or.
What about those girls that completely change their skin tone?
Oh
with
yeah, they do all
makeup?
the contouring and stuff too. That could throw it off. If you're a thought, watch out. Actually, maybe that's the secret. Maybe we all need to be thoughts.
Or maybe organized crime should start hiring Instagram.
Influencers.
Yeah, influencers.
The Instagram is literally going to the organized crime is literally going to look like something out of one of those like dystopian Japanese Blade Runner novels where like the people got the tattoos and the shapes and stuff painted on their face.
No,
in
they
weird
do.
ways.
Remember the
The ICP makeup.
AI sticker?
Yeah.
That fools it. It's like you just paint that on your face.
It's like the security camera, and this guy's a ghost. The camera doesn't pick up any humans in the area between 9 and 12 p.m. You know, what sort of crazy member of the Yakuza is this? And it's just a guy wearing a holographic sticker.
The end.
The AI was like, there's nobody here. I don't know what you're talking about.
What's a sunflower doing all of this? Well, remember the innocent world we lived in where it was a big news event and it was outrageous when an unmanned drone killed someone somewhere in the world? It's still happening constantly, but it's not worth reporting anymore. But those drones are still out there and they're getting better and better.
Turns out there are drones that never need to land. So this is not a picture of one of those, because this drone would definitely need to land.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, they use lasers. So they're firing lasers at the drones to power them mid-flight, and they hope to get that working up to 500 meters.
nice.
So every 500 meters, you just put a laser tower, and you can keep drones flying in a 500-meter radius of every tower.
That's going to be exciting because you can have first responder drones anywhere in the world in minutes.
Now,
Asterisk. Some restrictions apply.
I wonder how
Kentucky.
high, though. Like, what happens when a commuter plane flies through that laser?
Oh, no, they've got their own airspace above 30,000 feet.
But then you're adding another 500 meters vertically.
Oh, yeah. That's probably fine. We'll put some satellites in orbit that, shoot with lasers. It was like, never mind, people in Saskatchewan are getting cancer.
Well, it's not enough that robots and drones are conquering the skies, but it's time that they also conquered the seas.
This is the first robot that has made it across the Atlantic autonomously, which I thought was pretty exciting. And it looks tiny. It looks like a toy.
It does look like a toy.
It turns out some of the robots that have attempted this in the past were smaller or about the same size, but fishing boats and things like that have picked them up. This one avoided fishing boats and avoided being picked up. And
Couldn't you solve that just putting like a little sign on it? It's like, please don't pick me up.
you don't necessarily, like the fishing boats don't necessarily speak English.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah. There was a bunch of people competing to do this, various countries and designs and stuff, and this is the one that did it first, going all the way around the world. Some of them they talked about were too big and the displacement was too much, so they get caught up in a current, and their little solar battery wasn't enough to overcome that, to like sail out of it and stuff. So that's kind of cool. They are definitely talking about making shipping lanes on the seas be automated ships. And there's probably not a ton of risk for doing that.
What about the pirates? It'd never be a better age to be a pirate than when it's all just robots.
Well, maybe, but depending on how much the pirates are going to take, you just remotely destroy it.
The Tom Hanks movie, it's like they board and there's nobody there except the Terminator.
Or, like 1 out of every 30 shipping containers is just filled with angry dogs.
All wearing backpacks.
Spiders.
Spiders.
Well, we're going to need some powerful artificial intelligence to man all these drones and, seafaring vessels and things of that nature. And the Pentagon is ready to pay for it.
$2 billion they're going to invest into artificial intelligence because they think they can make things better with artificial intelligence. And by better, I mean...
Worse for us, but better for them.
Worse for the rest of the world, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know what we're going to do with that.
Well,
Liberate Venezuela? I don't know.
all that, I told you earlier, all that money that we take out of Bezos' pocket, Going
This is
right,
where it's going.
It's right into the drone program.
Good news, everyone.
It's too bad that Amazon can't get together with the Pentagon, because I'm sure that the robot like factory / warehouse automation would be good for like automating like weapons manufacturing. Seems like those things are related.
Aren't they? I think they are. I think everything that Google is having to not pick up because
Amazon's picking up.
Yeah, Amazon's just like swooping in there. Them and Microsoft are like, oh, we'll do it. Yeah, we'd love to have that contract.
That is an interesting contrast. It's like Google employees have the reputation of being extremely well paid, and Amazon employees have the reputation of being extremely underpaid. And I wonder if that's some of like the people at Google are like, no, we can afford not to work on this, and the people at Amazon are like, I just had to get a second mortgage on my house. I will help the Pentagon with their AI killer robots. I mean, it's fine.
And it's going to have a knock-on effect, because all the research that Amazon does for military AI, they're going to put right back into the warehouse and cut more workers. So that's a vicious cycle. The Bernie cycle.
You must pack 7 more items. You have 30 seconds to comply.
Feeling that burn.
It's a bright future. Now, a lot of people complain that women don't have enough of a place in, IT and computer science and that type of thing. But here's a story that begs to differ. Here's a robot that only works because it wears a skirt.
Okay.
I wonder where you were going with that, because I was like, this wasn't invented by...
Yeah.
Look at the little skirt. That was the revolution here. This little blue skirt.
It's basically a badminton shuttlecock that goes inside water pipes looking for leaks, which is a big deal. It's actually a piece of technology we really need.
So they originally were trying to somehow detect a vacuum, so the robot would drive through and where it detected more of a vacuum because water was leaking out. And no one could figure out, it's like, nah, we can't make this work. And the inventor of this thing stepped on a woman's skirt, and he like just barely stepped on it, and it was like a spider web. She immediately was like, what's happening? What's happening to my skirt? And he was like, oh.
If you've never worn a skirt, that is actually like if you get caught on something, it's instant. Like you turn around.
Yeah. So he figured that out, applied it here, and it turns out it works amazingly. The estimations here for monetary loss due to broken water mains is astonishing. 3 billion liters of water, and in India, as much as 40% of their clean water leaks. That's crazy.
We can't afford to lose clean water there.
That could be going into my Nestle bottle.
We would never, ever support Nestle.
So yeah, everybody's going to pick one of these up. And Watchtower Robotics. Good job, Watchtower Robotics.
I'll have to send that article to my cousins. They're all plumbers. Maybe they'll start using them.
Now this next article, this has this episode's title in it, and I'll tell you what it is.
This hyper-real robot will cry and bleed on med students.
So this week's title, Hal Was Built to Suffer.
His little face. Scroll up so they can see his face. I don't know if they got a good look at it. Let's switch back. He doesn't look upset there, but that's really just, the cold, sad, dead feeling before he starts crying.
He's got motors in his face, so he does get upset, more upset.
I'm upset.
He can, his tongue and esophagus can swell and block his breathing. He can cough up things. He can cry. He can bleed. He actually breathes CO2 because he's got a CO2 cylinder in one of his legs.
That's what the lungs are. I mean, that works.
And just all sorts of things can go wrong with Hal. And it's to teach you how to deal with that kind of stress when you're working with actual patients, especially children.
So this is like a very expensive game of Operation.
Kind of like that. I don't think his organs are exposed.
Does it make a noise like when you touch him?
Well, he can, he can cry and, like scream out in pain and stuff like that. He's very advanced.
Would that, do you think it'll have the opposite effect where it just sort of desensitizes you to it?
He's $48,000.
Whew.
They made a version that was a little bit more realistic, but some of the people just couldn't hack it. Like they were too freaked out. They get these first timers would come in there and Hal was too real. But I feel like that should wash you out, don't you think?
That should be your first course in med school. You're learning anatomy 101, and then also you have to work on Hal.
So
and if you can't handle it working on Hal, maybe you should change majors.
They also talk about they're working on Victoria, who is a robot who gives birth.
Ooh.
And there was another one, Super Tori, who is a newborn that does the same kind of thing.
Oh, look at him crying there.
I guess it's really hard to get medical cadavers these days.
His
Do people
pupils
not give their
dilate.
money?
Say what?
Do people not give their money? Does that people not give their bodies for cadavers anymore?
Well, yeah, but the dead bodies can't react.
That's true.
What sort of company do you have to work for that goes about reanimating dead bodies this style? 'Cause that would be a great place to work, probably.
Necromancy revolutionizes medicine. But then, if you were the family, wouldn't you sue because you're not allowing your people to rest in peace? You're bringing them back.
You gave the body to science.
Yeah,
that would be amazing.
You signed your necromancy card.
Talk about the worst betrayal. It's like you die and your kids sell your body to the necromancy school for like 10 grand, and all of a sudden you just wake up and somebody's going at you with a scalpel.
Hopefully you wouldn't be conscious. Maybe they would install a shunt for your brain or something. But I was just thinking about life support machines, just miniaturize that stuff and put it where your brain used to be.
You have to have an intact brainstem to be a zombie. Everybody knows that.
That's why you always take out the head.
Yeah.
Well, there you go.
That was all we had. We're ending with Hal.
We'll see you on Friday for even more nonsense.
Today is September 14th. It is Friday. Yay, it's the weekend. Finally.
Well, this goes up at midnight, so
well,
you might still have a whole day.
They might not. Maybe they took that weekend off. Maybe they're going to go for a nice fall retreat.
Maybe they watch it at work because that seems to be a lot
of a common thing. Yeah.
It's technically not fall yet, Krista.
Oh, whatever. This white girl's excited. I put cinnamon air freshener in my office a month ago.
When are you going to roll over to pumpkin spice?
I need to get a new one because my other one's out. So that means whatever flavor I pick, everyone at the office they're at my mercy.
They will endure.
Maybe I should send out a memo that's like, pick your scent because it's going to affect the whole office.
Set up a form.
Well, it's not just the burgeoning days of the greatest season. It's also an important anniversary.
The Equifax data breach. Remember that? It's been a year. And aside from bringing up some people on some insider trading because they thought that it would be really bad for Equifax's stock, nothing has happened. And we've got one reporter at Fortune that's like, hey, that Equifax thing, nothing's really happened with that.
Yeah.
What's going on?
So they bring up, not only has nothing happened, they continue to be powerful players in the credit business. They've gotten several new government contracts.
That doesn't make sense.
They've paid no real fines to speak of. No one's gone to jail, and no one's talking about it.
Anybody work in IT and Equifax can give us the skinny. Has anything changed with processes? Because I would be willing to bet that no, nothing has changed with processes.
Listen, it won't happen again. Who would do that again? A second time?
Well, this is the security section, in case you didn't already realize it, and we begin our march of leaks and failures, and it's just week after week. I mean, nothing is safe these days.
No.
Our lives are an open book, more like a leaky faucet. This one is not a recent breach, but we do find out new details about a breach that happened years ago.
Premera Blue Cross is accused of destroying evidence in a data breach lawsuit. So there's a class action suit here where the people that were suing them were like, hey, you guys had a data breach. We need some evidence. And they're like, oops, we accidentally destroyed that evidence. Guess you don't have a case.
There were...
Sucks to be you.
I think it was 35 computers had been subpoenaed, and they turned over 34. And they were like, hey, where's computer 35? And they're like, oh, sorry. It was end of life. It's been destroyed. Turns out that was the one with the logs, the security software, and the only copy of the intrusion detection that is available.
Yeah, oops.
Sorry.
That was totally accidental, a complete coincidence, right?
Oh. Now, we've talked about MikroTik a lot recently. I think this is a relatively new thing. It might have been last week or the last time we talked about them, but this story is September 4th, talking about their routers now sending traffic that they don't want to be out.
Yeah, we announced the vulnerability and we're like, hey, go patch it. A lot of people didn't patch it. In fact, thousands upon thousands of people did not patch it. And it turns out that those routers are so compromised that a lot of your internet traffic is being sent to Russia and China. Those seem to be what the IP addresses were.
It's almost like those thousands of users don't watch the Level 1 news.
Yeah.
What are they thinking? They do talk about, I think there's a lot in South America. Brazil seems to be a big place. Not where they're sending the data, but where all the affected routers are. So I guess they're not big fans of updating things down there. Now, we also talked about last week there was a spyware company that had lost a ton of sensitive things. And not spyware in terms of like accidental spyware, but spy on your cheating wife spyware.
Or keep an eye on your kids.
And this week, pretty much a carbon copy.
Yeah, Krebs on Security has a pretty nice article that lays this out. But this is also the second time in 3 years that this mobile spyware maker, MSpy, has leaked millions of sensitive records. Like literally this like Krista, when you were sort of making fun of Equifax, like who would do it again? Well,
it happened again. Second time.
And this is, they're capturing everything that happens on those mobile devices. So MSpy meaning mobile. So and they keep that stuff, which is
forever.
I guess, I guess it's good if you want to go back and peruse what the divorce case is going to play out for a year or two, right? So I'm going to need to come back to this.
If you're spying on your kids, they could also spy on your kids because they have a copy of everything, and then it can be in a leaky S3 bucket, and then whatever your kid did that was stupid is on the internet forever.
Yeah, unfortunate.
They looked up how to treat pimples. How can I use this against them?
What if they were like, looking up how to join ISIS, and you get your kids arrested?
I know that was the two things I looked up the most on the internet were like, skin treatments and then how to join terrorist cells. That was my whole youth.
She was way ahead of her time too, because in those days that wasn't even the cool thing to do. We didn't even know that back then about Middle East terrorism and where it would go.
It's a trendsetter.
Now we have recently heard about Kim.com losing his court case. He was going to be extradited. I think he was appealing that.
Yes.
I think we're still waiting to find out. But he got some more terrible, terrible news this week.
Things not looking good. The MEGA.nz Chrome extension has been caught stealing passwords, cryptocurrency, and private keys. So it would look, Ethereum private keys, Monero, Amazon accounts, GitHub, you name it.
Yeah, and this was not, it doesn't seem like this was malicious on behalf of Mega. It seems like somebody got a hold of one of their developer accounts, and they had sort of a snippy response to this, and they were talking about how the Play Store and the App Store and the Mozilla repository for extensions, they all allow the app makers to sign these things, and so there's no problem with this. Google, on the other hand, insists on signing it themselves after it's been uploaded, which allowed these bad actors to get this through. And this is a very popular Chrome extension.
Yeah, that's not good. Got to set up two-factor on whatever this is, I guess.
Yeah, so if you have that, they pulled the version that was bad, so you should automatically update, but they might already have your passwords and keys. So they're saying change all your passwords, move all your crypto, and maybe ask yourself, do I really need this Chrome extension? Now here, this is a great example of, the whole security through obscurity thing, because a 403 might not always be what you think it is. It could be very dangerous.
400,000 websites are vulnerable through exposed .git directories. So the deal with this is when you start doing stuff under version control of Git, it creates a folder called .git and puts all your stuff in there. Well, if you're not careful and you're doing stuff on a website, or you put your website under version control, you get a .git folder, and if you can access those files from the internet, then you may be exposing stuff that you don't mean to expose about the source code that's running your website.
And if you try to go to .git, there's no index file. So you might think, oh, access denied. I'm secure.
No.
But you're not, because those Git files might still be open. And in 400,000 cases, they are. And that's bad news. And you should ignore all of the files that have passwords and keys and stuff in them. But most people don't.
Yeah, most people don't, especially on internal or private repositories. They don't. So you can store the .git folder in some other folder if you set an environment variable. So it doesn't even have to be under your web root. You can also configure htaccess to ignore it, or if you're using Nginx, an exclusion rule. All of those things are completely fine.
I would say required. So I thought this Sky News story was a little pretentious because I was like, BA, what's BA? Turns out it's British Airlines. How am I supposed to know that?
Badass. That's what BA stands for, badass, right?
Badass British Airlines have been hacked. 380,000 card payments have been compromised and breached. So apparently they store your credit card information, which they're not supposed to.
Their
That data has
response,
been lost.
But they did.
we're deeply sorry.
We're sorry. So sorry.
But yeah, they lost a lot of records. And there's not a whole lot more to that story. It's just another one of those, we did it wrong. Sorry. I think they tracked it down to one system that hadn't been updated.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That's all it takes. It's hard. It's hard to manage all that. I mean, a lot of vendors don't make it easy to track or audit any of that.
Now, those of you who are Mac users, and honestly, I think all the big companies, after seeing how successful the app stores are looking to go this way. But the Mac has an app store, the same as iOS has an app store these days. And they claim that, you should only load stuff from the Mac app store. You can't run anything that's not trusted because that's going to keep you safe. That's the way to go. But maybe that's not true.
Yeah, it turns out Apple can't keep an eye on everything. And so one of the top Mac apps has been yanked because it has been sending user info to China. Not just from its own app, but from other apps as well.
It was like an anti-ad, anti-malware type app. And it seemed...
It is the malware.
Now, this is also amazing. This is a paid app.
Yeah.
So you pay them to spy on you. Oh, what a world. They've pulled it down, but it turns out they knew about it for months. And they were very slow to act on it. And a lot of people are accusing them of doing that because that was a big moneymaker. Remember, they get 30%.
Oh, yeah.
And I think it was $4.99, and that was the number one seller. So that goose was laying golden eggs.
You think there was someone at that office who was like, hey, we really need to pull this? And there was like, I don't know. The manager was like,
Let me
make a lot of money.
Let me run some numbers here that what a possible lawsuit could look like. You know what? Let's leave that up for 30 days.
It's if it were a legit security program, it might not be unusual that it is sending a lot of information from user devices for analysis from a security perspective. But China, fishy.
Well, I don't think they were able to identify where those IPs were going.
Yeah.
So if it were a known security apparatus, then they would claim it, I think.
One would think, yeah.
Of course, it's probably the Chinese government. I mean, who are we kidding?
Need all the data.
And some data that they're probably getting, and they're probably just buying this because it's for sale, is your TV viewing and operational habits.
This is like the third time Vizio's been in trouble for this, which is mentioned in the article. Vizio may soon inform its customers when its smart TVs are spying on them. So Vizio TV, like they do content analysis, like they look at the frames you're displaying, even if it's like you're playing local media, and try to figure out what it is that you're watching in order to report it back, in order to build an ad profile. So good luck having your TV on the internet, because that's not a thing.
Does it just constantly pop up? Like you're trying to watch a show and you're just getting a pop-up constantly. It's like, hey, we're recording this, just reminding you.
Yeah.
And you dismiss it, and then like 5 minutes later it's like, hey, still recording, just wanted you to know.
Well, they had a certain amount of time to do something about it, and they've let that expire more than once. So I think they're going to try to do this just to minimize the lawsuit.
It's like a system update. They just keep saying do it later.
Well, yeah,
the data is too profitable. I mean,
I think they are literally exploring, like, how do we push this out to all of our devices, even the old ones?
Because it's a massive moneymaker. If you told advertisers that you had a window into exactly what's going on in a home and what people are watching and the programs and the ads they see and all this kind of stuff, that's hugely valuable.
Do you think there's like they keep sending a bug report about one of the addresses here in town where it's like, this can't be right. No one watches the Lord of the Rings trilogies 3 times a week.
I did as a kid. Like in middle school, I'd come home after school, and I had an hour before my mom got home. So instead of starting my homework, I would start one of my VHS tapes of Lord of the Rings.
Mine's probably reporting that this guy's watching Star Trek: The Next Generation for the 800th time. Because it's just fun to have on in the background.
These are the extended editions. There's no way.
They're watching them every day.
Well, moving on to social media. This is maybe not shocking news to most people, but the Pew Research Company has done a lot of Facebook studies. And in fact, they found that a quarter of Facebook users have gotten rid of the app.
American Facebook users.
Yeah. So 25%. But this is just deleting the app. This is not actually deleting your account or anything like that. I think the Washington Post has done some good journalism here, but they don't make a big enough distinction about the fact that it's the app, not the Facebook account and not anything else. So it's not that people have stopped using Facebook completely. They've just removed the app from their phone.
Now, they do report that the 1 in 4 number is the youngest demographic that they studied. Older people, or no, it's the other way around. Younger people were more likely to have deleted it.
Yeah.
And they are not using the website as much separate from deleting the app. So it's definitely declining in every way that they studied.
So now one wonders if it'll affect the stock price, because Zuckerberg was looking for like an immediate stock effect, and it may be a little bit of a delayed reaction. Who knows?
Most people I know who have Facebook, myself included, don't use the app because it asks for so many permissions. Like, it wants everything.
Well, they talked about how a lot of people, the trend seemed to be like they would try to give up Facebook and they would make it a week or maybe 2, but then they had to come back and get their fix. And then they would maybe go another week or 2. And that was the more common way to use Facebook now, rather than daily check-ins.
I think that the apps that require permissions, you should be able to just decline the permission. Like Google Play should not let the app on the store if it is, it will crash or close if you decline permission. And it's like, this is a photography app. You have to give it permission for the camera. Okay, that's fine. But if you tell it no, you just get a blank screen. Like, you could still do stuff inside the app, because the Facebook app is so complicated that it's like, I don't want to give the Facebook app permission to record. And the reality is that the Facebook application, I will never use an audio recording function from within that application, and it does a whole bunch of other stuff. Seems like an easy fix.
They won't do it.
Except it's not valuable to them.
Yeah.
If that's the
They
case.
can't listen to you all the time.
Well, here's the question of the day, the engagement question of the day. How far would you go for free Domino's pizza for life?
Well, if you get a tattoo in a prominent place, they've ended that promotion. That was a terrible idea.
This was a Russian promotion. So here's the deal. You get a tattoo. Oh, New York Post, I don't want that. You get a tattoo like this one. It has to be quote unquote prominent. So I guess this counts. You know, that's
on your arm.
pretty
You
obvious.
have to wear a long sleeve shirt to cover that up.
So you get this, and then you take pictures and you post it to social media with some hashtag or whatever. And then if they request it, you have to be able to prove that it's you. And you get free Domino's for life. And that...
It's 100 pizzas a year.
Yeah, they do.
For 100 years.
Couldn't you fake that? If it's just a picture on social media, couldn't you get like a fake tattoo?
Well, they'll
They'll
have
verify when you show up.
Yeah, they have the fine print that you have to prove.
Like, do you go in there and they just pour alcohol on your arm and like rub it?
Yeah.
So they expected, you remember the Olive Garden Never Ending Pasta Bowl?
Yeah.
They're like, that's $300. Nobody will go for it. Well, it turns out a lot of people are willing to get these tattoos. They announced it, and at the end of the first day of the announcement, 350 people had done it.
Yeah. I don't, the only thing I could think of while I was reading this was Mike Judge's Idiocracy. It's like the whole time it's like Carl's Jr. extra big ass fries.
Man, that is 2 pizzas a week.
Yeah.
That's a
You
lot.
definitely live on that.
Well, I don't know if you could.
You wouldn't be living well.
Nutritionally.
For
Yeah.
one person, that's probably 6 meals.
Yeah.
I mean, if you go by actual calorie recommendations, probably more like 8, right?
Yeah. So you could, it would not be a glorious survival, but
Glorious.
you could survive.
This is in Russia, though. Like, is there... I don't know a lot about Russian culture. Do they feel weird about tattoos? Like, in Japan, the only people who get tattoos are people who are in the Yakuza.
Well, the people that
Domino's Yakuza.
the image we saw had a bunch of tattoos. So
Maybe not.
yeah, I'm sure that would be funny though if only the criminals are getting free Domino's.
They should run that promotion in Japan if they really wanted to limit.
Here's my teardrop for when I killed that guy. Here's my Domino's for my free pizza. I can show up.
You know where you run this this promotion is in Israel because you can't be buried in a Jewish cemetery. How bad do you want that? Those 2 pizzas a week.
I was just thinking about how bad the economy is getting. I mean, it's like if the economy gets really bad, and it's like you're telling me that I don't have to worry about food for life?
Do you think Domino's will last the rest of our lives?
Oh yeah, that's a good point. They could be absorbed, and then that agreement goes away.
And then you just have a stupid domino on your.
Would it be
forearm.
honored, internationally? Like if some Russian tourists came to New York, would they be able to get the Domino's? Like, does corporate honor that?
Oh, I'm sure that's not the case. Yeah, I'm sure it's got to be in probably, a specific area of Russia. Well, this story, this was kind of ridiculous. We've gone to nonsense, in case you didn't notice. That was sort of a crossover between social media and nonsense, but this was just poor planning, I guess.
So it turns out, Linus Torvalds got confused about when the kernel maintainers summit is. Linus Torvalds, is the original creator of Linux, the Linux kernel, and they have a meeting every year where him and the people that work on the Linux kernel get together because it's a lot of people. He got confused about where it was. He thought it was in Edinburgh, so he planned a family vacation there, and it was actually in Vancouver. So they're still going to have an event in Vancouver, but the 30 key people or whatever are going to go to Edinburgh instead to have the kernel summit because Linus wasn't real sure where it was, which is kind of funny.
Wow.
I mean, it happens to the best of us.
But you would think that he'd be like, "Oh, that was my bad, so I'm gonna go to Vancouver."
No, Linus actually suggested having the event without him, which I think, knowing Linus, not knowing Linus at all, but I would guess based on his personality that some component of this was, I wonder how it would, as an experiment, I wonder how they would do without me at the Kernel Maintainers Summit, because I think I could go on vacation with my family and you guys would be okay. And it's funny that it's like, well,
we all want to go there and see you.
Yeah, we'll come to see you. It's cool. But he's like, okay.
So that would be an expensive trip.
This next story, if you hate unanswered questions, I'm sorry, because there are nothing but unanswered questions. The headline is...
This is bizarre.
It makes you ask so many questions, and I'm sorry, we can't tell you any of the details.
It makes me feel very bad. So the headline says, boy 15 beheaded himself with a chainsaw after losing computer games. This was in Russia somewhere, apparently.
But there's hardly any details in this article, and I don't think we could find
what game,
other sources for it.
What game was it? We don't know. How do you kill yourself with a chainsaw?
Do you fall on it, or do you twist it around? And
if you were holding the trigger, you would stop once you lost consciousness.
One would think.
That again, this is maybe this is just fake news. I don't know, but we had to report a headline like that. That's crazy. Now we can speculate. I think it was Counter-Strike.
Oh, I thought you were going to say about the machine. It was like he set up some sort of elaborate Rube Goldberg machine.
No. I'm not even going to guess.
No, I think it was LOL, League of Legends.
You think so?
Yeah, League of Legends.
I wonder what are the big online games in Russia? What are they best at?
I don't know. I don't know that stereotype.
Maybe people in the comments will tell us what's popular. Is Fortnite popular in Russia?
League of Legends has that reputation of being super toxic, so I could see someone getting super into that.
Well, I don't know that he was being harassed.
No, but people get really serious about that game, so I don't know.
Maybe
the MOBA crowd's pretty serious.
Now we talk a lot about South Korea, and how technologically advanced they are, and in a lot of ways, they've got that fantastic infrastructure for the internet.
Samsung controls everything.
They've got these. They're a very
United States
utopian in terms of the future of a technology-driven world, but there can be a very dark side to that.
So the police force is now checking public toilets daily for hidden cameras, and we'll talk about that in a second. But scroll down a little bit so you can see the picture. This public restroom looks amazing.
That is spot. Look at the walls are literally just shining.
There's not
They're
even
so clean.
There's not even a speck of shit on that wall.
I am so sorry if anybody from South Korea comes to America and has to use a public restroom because it's bad.
I mean, not all of them are, but there are some horror stories.
All of the public restrooms in America looks like it's just been open to nature for 30 years, and the bears and the deers and the raccoons have all been using it.
What public restrooms are you using? I generally avoid going to
Any
bathroom in the public.
Well, there you go.
But that's just because I'm weird. I'm not a public pooper. That's not who I am.
I would like to avoid public restrooms, but getting roped into doing crazy stuff, and being away from the office happens a lot, and public restrooms experiences have always been just really terrible.
Well, here's the $1 million question. Would you trade this opulent, clean bathroom with someone recording your asshole as you take care of yourself?
That's the real question here is who wants to see that?
I would make that trade because I can learn to inspect the bathroom for hidden cameras before I go. I mean, that's easy enough.
What if you got to go real bad?
Yeah.
If it's a right now kind of thing.
I would take the chance because I would much rather end up with accidental hidden camera pooping versus taking the chance on like truck stop bathroom.
Now, here's
truck stop bathroom. That's not even a comparison. This is probably like at a nice restaurant or something.
Here's a solution. What if we could get a way to turn the light off right there at the toilet?
Oh yeah, that would be great.
Yeah, and like
wouldn't it be low light anyway? Because then you're sitting on it.
Well, this one isn't. I mean, look how bright it is.
But it wouldn't be in the bowl when you're sitting on it.
Well,
they're not necessarily getting you when you're sitting on it.
If it's a low light camera, it's probably going to have infrared emitters, which would be easy to pick up with a cell phone camera.
Now, you wonder like who would do this, but they talk about this is actually my life is not your porn.
It's a thing.
That's like a movement.
Wow.
And the upskirt thing is
I've
really
heard
big
of that.
there. Yeah, so that seems to be a popular kind of pornography. And I think that kind of person, it's more appealing to them if they know that it's real and the person doesn't know.
That's so bizarre.
That's a strange thing culturally. I got to wonder, though, how do you get to a point where your culture will literally just, like, it's okay to, like, poop in your hand and smear it on the wall, America, versus...
It's not okay.
It's not okay. He's really making us sound bad, but like
I don't know
what bathrooms you're visiting.
What's you're up to?
Because like the one at Kroger's not that bad.
Okay, so like Kroger and Walmart, they put a lot of work into maintaining those bathrooms.
They basically power wash the Walmart bathroom 3 times a day.
Yeah, probably more than that. And it's because of the aforementioned head pooper. But in South Korea, doesn't seem to be a problem. This is a different problem, but I wonder, like, culturally, what are the inputs that lead to those outputs? Like, is it high fructose corn syrup here in America that leads to that? Or, like, what's this? We need a neural net to figure out what the inputs are that lead to that output.
It's obvious. It's anime.
Anime elevates society except for the whole camera thing.
No, I think, a society that elevated gets like a counterculture, and anime feeds them and makes them more and more twisted.
It does seem like it's higher on the evolutionary ladder, so I would hate to attribute that higher evolutionary standard to anime, but
Is that really? I don't think that's higher though.
Well, how old is Korea?
You're watching people poop. I don't think that's not higher.
But if we look at like China and Japan, who also have these kinds of cultural things going on, they're very, very ancient cultures.
Yeah.
So maybe that has something to do with it.
Whereas here, it's just...
Are you saying that thousands of years ago in like the Han Dynasty that hand pooping
watching
was a
girls
thing?
poop, yeah.
No. That was that.
No.
We're saying that early on, so they would be hand pooping.
Okay, so they're so evolved that the people that were caught doing that in the public restrooms of 1000 AD, they just killed them.
And then it just slowly wiped it out, and now it's camera poopers.
Yeah, we haven't had anything like that, so it's a little bit back to the trees here in America.
We didn't get them before they bred. So there's a recessive gene that makes you want to watch people poop.
But it satisfies the hand pooping urge or whatever. So we changed the movement, but we didn't change the.
Okay, now that we've completely scientifically unlocked the cause of this, how do we prevent it?
Got to put something in the water.
Is there rehabilitation?
What's the next thing? Like, what's the next level of evolution?
We're going to need to engineer a CRISPR virus that takes those genes from the South Korean and gives them to the Americans through the water supply or something like that.
Well then we have the camera problem here.
I don't want that. And I'm sure we do.
The camera problem is much less worse than the hand pooping problem.
I think you think so? Well, that's you thinking that. This is the patriarchy speaking through you. Because no one wants to watch you poop.
Yeah. That may be.
But what about poor Krista?
Krista, which
Am I going to have to check for cameras in the bathroom?
You probably should start. Yeah.
If the bathroom is clean, check for cameras. If the bathroom is filthy.
Else.
Or what if? But see, now a new generation is going to be like, oh, I see. They're going to start hiding cameras in fake filth.
What sort of perverted evolutionary output is that? That's just... Ugh.
Well, the worst, though, that we had a guy here, we called him the dark pooper. We don't actually know who it was. There was a guy here who, like, you would think that the bathroom was closed, but you'd realize the door was locked, but the light was off.
Well, you say that's worse. I don't think that's...
Maybe that's the next level. Maybe he's on a higher evolutionary plane.
Well, that's definitely better than watching other people or smearing it on the wall.
So he's the dark pooper.
No, actually, we had an incident here where it's like somebody poured something out in the sink that had solid matter in it, and they just left it, and it's like it didn't drain correctly, and so it's like, how, like, if it didn't drain correctly, you should say something first of all, but second of all, why would you pour something?
What was that?
Solid.
Was it tea?
I don't think it was tea. I don't know what it was.
It looked like flakes of tea or something.
Maybe if it was, somebody made it wrong. But it's like, why would you leave that? Like, why would you leave the bathroom in that state? What possible situation would create that as an outcome? Like, it makes no sense.
That's just shame. Like, if if the water starts to rise and doesn't go down, you just run.
Is it though?
You don't try to plunge. Like,
well, I'm not saying I do that, but I'm saying I've known people who
I don't
just react with panic.
But what sort of cultural thing drives that behavior model? That makes no sense.
I think we're going to need to talk to Bernie Sanders, get some of that Bezos money, and get a grant. Study this.
We need to go directly to the Department of Education and make a public toilet etiquette or toilet etiquette in general.
We can make it international.
We
can
the
partner
Department
with
of Health.
South Korea and get some of their people involved.
I also get the feeling that some of the people that would do like the hand pooping thing, like they would never do that in their own toilet, and it's like, no, you must. Like the public toilet, the toilet does not belong to you. You must treat to an even higher standard than the toilet that you have at home.
Is it maybe they don't have toilet paper?
I don't know how not having toilet paper would lead to dumping solid matter in the sink.
Is it? I don't know if South Korea is like this, but it is common in Asian countries that you bring your own.
Oh yeah,
that's true in Mexico as well.
In Taiwan, it turns out that that's a thing, and in some areas, and the reason for that is because people will steal the toilet paper.
What a life.
But the bathrooms are still immaculate. So, like, one of the bathrooms at, like, one of the public markets was like that. And you had to go to a vendor and be like, hey, can I have some toilet paper? And they were like, yes, here is your allotted portion of toilet paper. But otherwise, the bathroom was completely immaculate. And it was like, why is it like that? And it's like, oh, well, people will come in and just take the toilet paper home.
Anyway, this has gone on a while now. You can tell us about your bathroom experiences.
See, Krista, we didn't make the 30-minute mark.
Oh.
But you see, also, in public toilets here, there just won't be any toilet paper at all. Like, you'll have to deal with crap on the walls, as well as there's just no toilet paper.
Do people not do the check? I always do a check.
But they've got those, the dispensers now, where you can't.
That are like armored.
You can't get in. You'd have to take it. You'd have to unroll it all the way.
Listen, that's what it takes.
Those are also designed with like you can't unroll it all in one continuous thing. It will rip.
Yeah, it's got like a break.
Yeah,
which is very frustrating.
What an amazing level of engineering. So apparently we also have the steel toilet paper problem, but our solution is an engineering one instead of a practical one.
It's amazing that we
Well, we don't have to hire anybody for it.
We're in space as a people.
We still deal with the bathroom.
We're doing all these amazing things, but when it comes to public toilets, we might as well still be in the dark ages.
I don't know if it's that impressive that we went to space. I mean, one of the guys just drilled a hole in the space station.
Those were the Russians.
Like ED-209 from RoboCop, I would be okay with those being in every public bathroom. And it's like, hey, you didn't, flush.
But then
you can't leave.
We're just going to find out that ED-209's Amazon bucket was unsecured, and he's got pictures of all of us.
Yeah, that would be bad.
All right. Let's mercifully put this one to sleep.
Just end it.
Hopefully.
If you want more of that nonsense, it's on the Patreon podcast.
Hopefully next week we'll have a few more stories. We'll see you then.
Bye.